This item did not exist during the life of the ancient god, but was placed here after its death. It was separated when the ancient demon and immortal emperor became entangled and entered this cave. For some unknown reason, it ended up in the skull of the ancient god in the immortal burial pool. Although Void Master stood behind the ancient demon Tagia, his state was extremely bizarre. His eyes were vacant yet filled with madness, and a rune mark appeared above his forehead, emitting a chilling demonic aura. It was evident that he had been sealed by Tagia, but Wang Lin could clearly sense that Void Master's aura was rapidly dissipating, and he was on the brink of death. Ling Tianho's expression was complex. When his gaze met Wang Lin's, he instinctively avoided it, looking elsewhere, as though deep in thought. The most enigmatic of all, however, was Tian Yunzi. Tian Yunzi's expression was calm, just as it had been when he first entered the Immortal Emperor's cave. There was a knowing look in his eyes. When Wang Lin looked at him, Tian Yunzi smiled in return. Seeing Tian Yunzi and the others appear, Wang Lin sighed inwardly. He knew that the blood on the restriction only affected the ancient demon Tagia. It was useless against Tian Yunzi and the others. Fortunately, they were already on the first level of the Immortal Emperor's cave, and escaping would not be difficult. But for some reason, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about the events that had just unfolded. The scenes felt oddly strange, yet he couldn't pinpoint exactly what was wrong. A vague sense of unease crept into his heart, growing stronger when he saw Tian Yunzi standing behind the ancient demon Tagia. In fact, all that had transpired happened in such a short time that Wang Lin hadn't had the chance to think deeply. Now, upon reflection, it seemed that all of their actions had been forced by the ancient demon. It was as if every movement had been deliberately orchestrated by the ancient demon. Much like Tian Yunzi's scheming, which made him feel a deep sense of dread. This feeling remained, swirling in Wang Lin's mind. In silence, he immediately stepped back. Situ Nin had been watching Wang Lin all this time. As soon as he saw Wang Lin retreat, he didn't hesitate and rushed forward, retreating alongside him. Wang Wei and Huan did the same. In an instant, all the cultivators around them hastened to retreat. Tian Yunzi smiled, raised his hand, and pointed forward. In that instant, a gray light flashed within his body, and a projection of the gray-clad Tian Yunzi emerged. He gave the true Tian Yunzi a cold glance, snorted, but still proceeded toward the restriction. Countless killing intent filled the air, quickly merging into an endless surge, crashing into the restriction. The ground shook, and the sound of booming echoed throughout the cave as the restriction flickered violently. But this restriction wasn't set up by Wang Lin alone. Wang Wei and Huan were also responsible, with Huan's restriction techniques being particularly formidable, far surpassing Wang Lin's. As a result, the gray-clad Tian Yunzi couldn't easily break the restriction. This gave the group some much-needed time. As Wang Wei retreated, he pointed upward with his right hand, and instantly, a water barrier surged forward, transforming into a giant made of seawater. The giant swung its massive fists, slamming them down, causing the ground to tremble and rocks to crumble. Huan didn't move, standing off to the side, her hands forming seals as she cast numerous large restrictions, reinforcing the barrier. Wang Lin's gaze flickered. He made his own hand gestures, his divine abilities swirling around him as he joined Wang Wei in attacking the restriction. The others wasted no time and also launched their attacks. The sound of thunderous explosions reverberated throughout the first level of the Immortal Emperor's cave. Meanwhile, outside the land of demon spirits, in the starry sky, the true spirit of the Vermilion bird was surrounded by 6 shattered Nirvana cultivators. They sat cross-legged, their hands forming seals and chanting incantations. Occasionally, they raised a finger, directing their energy into the true spirit's body, intensifying the flames within it. After a while, the true spirit of the Vermilion bird suddenly let out a shrill cry. As its voice echoed, a crimson sea of flames surged outward, enveloping everything around it. The high temperature was ineffective against those from the Vermilion bird sacred sect, but it was enough to burn away all the invisible dust and debris. The burning heat caused all the surrounding dust to disintegrate, leaving only a single location, the land of demon spirits. At this spot, flames began to ignite, revealing its position clearly to everyone. The true spirit of the vermilion bird let out another piercing cry, rushing toward this tiny, glowing speck of dust. Booming sounds erupted as the true spirit collided repeatedly with the seal on the dust. Each impact loosened the seal further. The 6 shattered nirvana cultivators unleashed their divine abilities, continuously bombarding the seal. The one left behind by Xun'er in the immortal realm shook violently under their assault. The external disturbances clearly reached the land of demon spirits, causing the entire area to tremble. Even those inside the cave felt the intensifying vibrations. However, no one paid attention to this. With everyone continuing their attacks, the barrier between the immortal emperor's cave and the land of demon spirits shattered with a resounding crash. Just as the barrier was about to collapse, Tian Yunzi, dressed in gray, broke through Huwan's restriction and rushed out. Huwan's face turned pale, and as she retreated, Wang Wei pulled her along, both of them heading straight for the breach in the barrier. Ancient demon Taijia took a step forward, a sinister smile spreading across his face as he suddenly inhaled. Instantly, boundless demonic aura surged out, transforming into countless black dragons that roared toward the group. The second among the 3 masters of the dust path was immediately entangled by one of the demon dragons. As he struggled in despair, the ancient demon consumed him. Wang Lin intended to save him, but was a step too late. A female disciple of the rustic beauty was also swept up by the black dragon. Even Qianqin, pale-faced, was about to be swept away by the demon dragon. At that moment, the woman in pink flashed forward, her body swirling with snowflakes. She grabbed Qianqin and rushed toward the open barrier. The black dragon landed on her and immediately clashed with the snowflakes. The woman in pink coughed up blood as her snowflake treasure, having blocked several attacks, shattered with a loud bang. Yet, she still managed to pull Qianqin through. Despite this, with the help of Situ Nan, Fu Qinzi, and the silver-clad woman summoned by Wang Lin from his storage pouch, De Tu and the others all broke free. However, the danger was far from over. Ancient demon Taijia took another step, his right hand extending forward and crushing down. With this crushing motion, those who had just emerged from the barrier and were stepping into the land of demonic spirits immediately felt an overwhelming pressure. Qianqin, whose cultivation was insufficient, coughed up blood, her body collapsing. Even the woman in pink beside her trembled, her body disintegrating into blood mist. Yet, her treasure, which had been obtained from the Kungsu realm, flashed and enveloped the essence spirits of both her and Qianqin. Though their essence spirits did not collapse, they were heavily damaged and began to merge with one another. Not only they, but the remaining 2 of the 3 masters of Dust Path were also affected. After the second disciple was saved by a dust particle, the third disciple's body immediately shattered, his essence spirit escaping and fleeing. Although Reggie was of average cultivation, his physical strength was formidable. Even so, his body crumbled by half, with the remaining half saved by De Tu, who had fortunately escaped unscathed. As for Fu Qinzi and Situ Nan, both were at the pure nirvana stage. In this critical moment, though severely wounded and coughing up blood, their bodies did not collapse. Situ Nan's expression, however, was strange as his internal poison flared up under the heavy injuries. The ancient demon's divine ability could have led to the annihilation of both their physical bodies and spirits. All of this was closely tied to Wang Wei and Huwan. As soon as the ancient demon Taijia made his move, the 2 of them immediately intervened, bearing the brunt of the divine power. The reason for this was clear. They knew that some of those present shared a deep bond with Wang Lin, and they were determined to repay Wang Lin's kindness. Wang Lin, after sharing the burden with Wang Wei and Huwan, spat out blood. His face grew pale, and his essence spirit was heavily wounded, causing his vitality to decline rapidly. Despite the endless fire elemental energy within him, it could not prevent the dissipating of his essence spirit. Even the ancient godskin armor could not prevent the damage. After all, Wang Lin was facing the ancient demon who had seized Qing Lin's body. Without hesitation, Wang Lin retrieved the wax pill that Wang Wei had given him earlier from his storage pouch, crushed it, and swallowed it. The pill worked wonders, immediately halting the spread of his essence spirit's injuries and healing them rapidly. Wang Wei and Hu Wan, their faces equally pale, retreated with blood trickling from their mouths. They exchanged a bitter smile, yet their eyes were filled with resolve. Wang Lin, we will hold off the ancient demon with our lives. From now on, the matter of our master's resurrection will no longer be mentioned. If you ever have the chance, save Qing Shuang for us. Wang Wei grabbed the air, and a crack appeared in front of him. From within, Zhou Yi was flung out. My wife and I have lived far too long, entering this cave mansion multiple times, yet we could never get close to our master for various reasons. We didn't expect that after getting close this time, it would end like this. Wang Wei's expression grew complicated. At that moment, ancient demon Taijia slowly stepped out from the barrier, looking up at the sky. A trace of excitement appeared on his face, and he began to laugh maniacally. Qing Lin, oh Qing Lin, how foolish of you to plan so carefully. In order to prevent me from taking over your body and leaving this place, you set up rules that would prevent me from ever breaking the barrier or destroying any restriction. Yet, all I needed was a mere illusion, and these people who came to save you have unknowingly paved the way for me, effortlessly breaking through the rules you created. With a clenched fist, ancient demon Taijia gazed at the heavens, his excitement growing more intense. As soon as the words were spoken, Wang Wei and Hu Wan immediately lost all color in their faces. Wang Lin inhaled sharply, and the ominous feeling that had been lingering in his mind was suddenly cleared up. He looked at the ancient demon with a narrowing gaze. Now, let me show you all the true power of this demon. Tower Jia laughed maniacally as he raised his right hand, his eyes filled with a bloodthirsty madness. In that instant, the ground suddenly trembled, and even the sky twisted with ripples. A phantom image appeared in the sky, an ethereal palace surrounded by a sea of vibrant flowers. Ancient demon, my husband's calculations say that you can break one, but what you don't know is that as you step out of the cave, you've already walked into my husband's second rule for you. A cold, melodious voice echoed across the heavens and earth. In the phantom palace in the sky, a woman in white slowly stepped out. Flower consort, Wang Lin exclaimed, gazing up at the sky. At the same time, in the land of demonic spirits, the seal that had been relentlessly attacked by the true spirit of Vermilion bird finally loosened, ready to break apart at any moment. Simultaneously, a streak of light from a rule, different from the sunrise rule of the planet, shone over the land of demonic spirits. Where it shone, it was the moment of the daybreak. At the moment Flower Consort stepped out, the seemingly real palace and the surrounding vibrant flowers shrank in size. In the blink of an eye, they became as small as a palm, enveloped in the scent of flowers, and fell into her hands, forming an exquisite miniature. With a simple gesture of her jade hand, the miniature vanished and fused into her body. Lifting her captivatingly beautiful head, Flower Consort calmly gazed at the ancient demon Tower Jia. A fleeting look of sadness and heartache flashed in her eyes. The separation many years ago, though not distant, felt like an eternity. Only today could they meet again, but this meeting felt like the moon reflected in water, the flower in the mirror. What was seen was not the soul of the past. It was like gazing across the river, with the green waters beneath and the mountains ahead. But once stepping into the river, looking back, something always seemed to be missing. The mountains and rivers lacked a soul, for one was missing. A red glow flashed in Tower Jia's eyes as he looked at Flower Consort, a bloodthirsty and greedy light shining in his gaze. He laughed madly. I've long heard of Qing Lin's extraordinary luck with women. All 8 of his consorts were stunning beauties, and Flower Consort was the most exceptional among them. I heard she's from the Wind Immortal realm, the sister of Immortal Emperor Lanyan. Back then, I couldn't even catch a glimpse of her. But now, seeing her in person, the rumors are true. Your husband, Qing Lin, is dead, but his body still remains. Why not let it serve me as a furnace for the Flower Consort? Tower Jia laughed wildly, taking a step forward and suddenly reaching out with his right hand. Though he laughed maniacally, Tower Jia's heart was filled with caution. He wasn't afraid of the Flower Consort, but he feared Qing Lin too much. According to what the Flower Consort had said, Lin had left many contingency plans for his eventual defeat, even before Tower Jia had successfully seized his body. The appearance of the flower consort was clearly one of Lin's arrangements. Lin became the strongest immortal emperor in his time. Even we, cultivators from the outer realms, had heard of him like thunder. Not only was his cultivation fierce, but his calculations were like those of heavenly fate, with the affairs of the world contained in every inch of his thoughts. As Tower Jia moved, the land of demonic spirits trembled violently. A dark mist suddenly appeared in the sky, enveloping the surroundings. The moment Tower Jia reached out, the black mist swirled and coalesced into an enormous black arm, descending from the sky and reaching for Flower Consort. At the same time, a humanoid figure by Tower Jia's side swept its cold eyes over and locked onto Wang Lin. In a blur, it lunged toward Wang Lin. Before even approaching, the air was filled with the sound of wind howling as it rushed through. At this moment, the Void Master was in a dire state. Though he stood still, his breathing was rapid and labored. The wheezing could be heard even from a distance. This was no human sound. It was like the breath of a beast. What was even more horrifying was that not only was his breathing erratic, but saliva also dripped from the corners of his mouth, falling onto the ground in viscous droplets that stretched into crystalline threads, making anyone who looked at it feel nauseous. His eyes bulged out, bloodshot with madness and confusion. His already aged face had contorted beyond recognition, with his features twisted as if in a trance. He stared intently at Wang Lin, his last vestiges of memory filled with hatred and murderous intent. With a roar, the Void Master followed the humanoid figure, charging toward Wang Lin. Tian Yunzi, still calm as ever, showed no change in expression. His eyes revealed a calm understanding, as though everything in this immortal emperor's cave had unfolded exactly as he had planned, with no deviation from his calculations. Ling Tianho kept his head lowered, his expression a mix of struggle, complexity, confusion, and guilt. The presence of the human-like being and the Void Master naturally drew the obstruction of Wang Wei and Hu Wan. However, the two of them were injured, and the figure they faced was extremely strange. As a result, the battle became stalemated for a while, with no clear victor emerging. The Void Master, panting heavily, became more frantic as Wang Wei and Hu Wan moved to block him. His eyes filled with madness. What he sought was Wang Lin, and anyone who got in his way would be crushed without hesitation. As Wang Wei approached, the Void Master let out a low growl. His flesh writhed unnaturally, giving off an eerie vibe. Wang Wei's expression shifted, and without thinking, he quickly retreated. However, as he withdrew, the Void Master opened his mouth wide, spitting out a torrent of black blood. The blood reeked of a nauseating stench, and as it sprayed forth, his body trembled uncontrollably. The amount of blood he expelled seemed to be nearly all of the Void Master's bodily fluids. Once the blood was released, it took on a strange, almost sentient nature, transforming into a blood net that sped toward Wang Wei. As Wang Wei continued to retreat, he performed a hand gesture and summoned a massive ice mountain to rise in front of him with a loud crash. The ice mountain appeared so suddenly that it instantly blocked the flood of black blood. Yet, the blood seemed to carry a mysterious, intense heat that quickly melted the ice, turning it into a blackened mass. Wang Lin, this is the flesh decay from the first decay of heaven and man, a state in which the body continuously deteriorates until it rots completely, leading to the annihilation of both body and spirit. Wang Wei shouted urgently, trying to prevent the Void Master's advance. However, Hu Wan was steadily retreating as the battle with the humanoid creature grew more intense due to her injuries. In a desperate moment, Wang Wei swiftly waved his hand, conjuring another massive ice mountain in front of Wang Lin. His figure flickered, rushing toward Hu Wan's side to help her deal with the strange humanoid creature. With no one left to block him, the Void Master, his mouth dripping with black saliva and blood, lunged toward Wang Lin. His eyes were filled with an even deeper madness. At this point, he no longer resembled a senior elder of the Cultivation Alliance, but rather a grotesque beast. Looking at the Void Master, Wang Lin was shaken to his core. What shocked him was not the Void Master's arrival, but the recent mentions of the 5 decays of heaven and man, so this is the first decay of heaven and man. After reaching the second step in cultivation, there is no longer a limit to lifespan. The energies of heaven and earth can permeate the body, granting boundless vitality. But the will of the heavenly Tao ensures that no living being can live as long as the heavens. The 5 decays of heaven and man at the stage of shattered nirvana is an unending catastrophe. This doesn't mean that those who haven't reached shattered nirvana are safe. In fact, there are even worse calamities waiting for them. The Void Master, panting heavily, charged forward again, closing in on the ice mountain. He opened his mouth once more, but this time, there was no blood left to spew. Instead, a foul stench filled the air, accompanied by a grotesque outpouring of decaying internal organs. Meanwhile, at the side of the flower consort, when the black misty hand summoned by the ancient demon Tagia reached out, she raised her jade hand and pointed forward. Instantly, a spherical object appeared at her fingertip. Inside this sphere, a swirling energy radiated, and numerous illusory shapes began to form. As the fragrance of flowers filled the air, the sphere floated upwards. Just as the massive hand neared, the sphere collided with it, and with a tremendous crash, the hand was shattered, breaking into countless streams of black mist. Tajia's pupils constricted, and with a cold grunt, he vanished and shot toward the flower consort. As his hands made intricate gestures, the sky itself seemed to darken. The black mist in the air coalesced, quickly transforming into floating black fog orbs that began writhing ominously. This technique, you must be very familiar with it. Tagia laughed as he reached his right hand towards the sky. With a low chant, he commanded, "Star Burial." As soon as the words left his mouth, the countless black orbs in the sky began to move with frightening speed. In an instant, they coalesced into spherical shapes that shone with a dim starlight. Despite the night sky, the starlight emanating from these spheres lit up the earth below, making it glow brilliantly. The star burial technique from my husband's 3 sun, moon, and stars divine arts. The flower consort's eyes were filled with complexity, but she shook her head and murmured softly, "However, with your power, you can't unleash its true potential." Tagia sneered and waved his right hand. Instantly, the starlight from the black fog orbs grew even brighter. As the orbs intersected, the starlight transformed from formless energy into tangible beams, spreading across the sky. With another wave of Tagia's hand, the tangled beams descended from the heavens, heading straight for the flower consort, as if to entomb her. If my husband unleashes the star burial immortal technique, he can draw upon the power of the starry sky, transforming it into a vast and mighty divine art that can spread across the entire star domain. He could fight against tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands, and if he faces a single opponent, that opponent must contend with the combined strength of all the starlight in the domain. A trace of disdain flashed in Huafei's eyes. She didn't even glance at the interwoven starlight falling from the sky. With a flick of her right hand, she cast a spell, and a fragrant mist poured from her mouth. Immediately, 9 spheres appeared around her body. These 9 spheres contained the power of the origin, revolving around Huafei, forming a formation around her. The moment this formation appeared, the starlight from the sky converged and concentrated upon her. In an instant, Huafei became the brightest spot of starlight under the sky. Meanwhile, in the starry sky outside the land of demonic spirits, as the true spirit of the Vermilion bird and the disciples of the Vermilion bird sacred sect relentlessly struck, the seal of the land of demonic spirits shattered with a loud bang. At the same time, the sky above the land of demonic spirits began to rumble and collapse, as though the entire sky was the seal itself, cracking and shattering, enveloped by a flood of starlight. The Vermilion bird sacred sect had arrived. Whether the immortal emperor's foresight was perfect, or if Tian Yunzi's calculations were superior, the answer remained unknown. However, this opportunity was incredibly precious to Tian Yunzi. If he succeeded, his Tao heart would undergo a leap, and with the overwhelming confidence and momentum, he would surpass the immortal Emperor Qinglin's fate and fully recover from the blow he had suffered years ago, even advancing further. Even if he failed, This was an opportunity Tian Yunzi had long dreamed of. By participating in this battle of calculations spanning countless millennia, he would gain the insights he needed. For this chance, Tian Yunzi was willing to sacrifice everything. What was the ancient demon Tagia worth? What was the cultivation alliance? Even if it caused a catastrophe in the heavens, it wouldn't stop his Dao heart from seeking the truth. What others sought was the physical body or divine arts of immortal Emperor Qinglin, and on a deeper level, they wanted to uncover the third step of his methods. But Tian Yunzi's goal seemed almost mad to others. He wasn't after the body or the divine arts. He wanted to face immortal Emperor Qinglin in a battle of calculations. You wish to seal the ancient demon, laying the foundation for him to seize your body in the future, but I seek to destroy all of it. The ancient demon is merely my tool, a tool for battling you, immortal Emperor Qinglin. Tian Yunzi's thoughts were unfathomable. If anyone could guess them, it would be Ling Tianhou. However, Tian Yunzi had never calculated for Wang Lin's first Vermilion bird awakening within the immortal emperor's abode. It was from that moment that Tian Yunzi felt a faint pressure. What truly intensified this pressure was that everything had gone according to his plan. The ancient demon Tagia had followed his suggestion, using illusions to deceive and drive the crowd, unknowingly assisting in breaking the first layer of the immortal emperor's calculations. Yet, Tian Yunzi never expected that damned Wang Lin would undergo the second Vermilion bird awakening here. The moment Wang Lin awakened, Tian Yunzi's calculations were thrown into disarray, with countless unadjustable variables arising. At that moment, the sudden change in the sky caused Tian Yunzi's expression to darken. He took a deep breath and understood that it was time for him to act. He closed his eyes, and in that instant, rainbow-colored light erupted from his body, mixed with shades of gray, forming 8 distinct colors. As the 8 colors flickered, 8 different clones of Tian Yunzi appeared from his body, each wearing different colored robes, including the gray-clad Tian Yunzi. Although the 8 clones had the same appearance, each emitted a different aura. The moment they appeared, they instantly scattered in all directions, heading straight for Wang Lin, the Cloud Immortal couple, and the other cultivators, with 3 of them heading towards the collapsing sky. At the same moment, Huafei, surrounded by starlight, felt the starlight around her body flicker and explode, pushing outwards. The 9 spheres around her dimmed, but her expression remained unchanged as she gracefully stepped forward. Looking up at the sky, the ancient demon Tagia's eyes showed seriousness. He reached out, and instantly, the thick-bladed knife materialized in his hand. Holding the demonic weapon, he swept it through the air, not towards Huafei, but at the sky, creating a slash of blade light. Huafei smiled. As the sky above them shifted dramatically, she understood. What immortal Emperor Qinglin had left behind had already begun to manifest. The one who will save me is a man with the surname Wang. When the celestial spirit heavenly realm collapses, I will have a chance to awaken. At this moment, the blade light of the ancient demon Tagia surged toward the heavens. The flower consort's body gradually became transparent until she vanished. But when she reappeared, it was before the blade light reached the high skies. She took a deep breath, and the 9 spheres surrounding her body swept forward, instantly clashing with the blade light. The sounds of explosions reverberated, and the powerful rebound force caused Flower Consort to stagger backward. A killing intent flashed in Tagia's eyes, and his body shifted as he charged straight at the Flower Consort. Meanwhile, at Wang Lin's location, with the arrival of the avatar of Tian Yunzi, he was immediately thrown into a crisis, especially with the Void Master attacking fiercely. Wang Wei's ice glacier could not block the onslaught. After a thunderous collapse, the Void Master's eyes gleamed with madness as he rushed toward Wang Lin. At the same time, Tian Yunzi's avatar, clad in gray, approached Wang Lin with a cold gaze. Behind him were 2 more avatars, all heading straight for Wang Lin. These 4 powerful figures, each possessing earth-shattering cultivation and divine abilities, surrounded Wang Lin. His pupils shrank, and his body sped backward. In that instant, the sky suddenly collapsed. As it did, the initial rules of the primordial world, which had appeared in the outer starry sky, fused into the land of demonic spirits through the broken sky. The collapse of the sky was like a shattered mirror, with broken fragments flying apart, and a crimson flame surged from behind, pushing these fragments downward. After the fragments, in the moment when the crimson flame arrived, a mighty, earth-shattering cry echoed, spreading throughout the land of demonic spirits. It was the sound of the true spirit of the Vermilion bird. But compared to the crisis Wang Lin was facing, he had no time to look up at the sky. Instead, while retreating, he immediately felt a familiar force of heaven and earth surrounding him. This familiar force was the same power Wang Lin had experienced on Water Spirit Star, sitting on a cliff, contemplating the dawn for months, and it was also the first divine ability he had ever created in this life, the Twilight Force. The sea sun shatters the twilight. In that moment, facing the three avatars of the Void Master and the gray-clad Tian Yunzi, who were determined to kill him, Wang Lin, upon feeling the Twilight Force, stopped retreating without hesitation. His eyes flashed with madness, and his arms shot up as he fixed his gaze on the four attackers. As his body shook, the initial rules of heaven and earth, which had been surging toward him, seemed to be drawn toward him at an incredible speed. Wang Lin's mind and body completely fused into a mysterious state. All the surrounding scenery disappeared, and in his mind's eye, he saw the moment of dawn, the power to tear apart the Black Night. The gray-clad Tian Yunzi's avatar, in the midst of this encirclement, suddenly had his pupils contract, showing a trace of shock. Not only him, but also the other two avatars beside him stopped for a moment, their gazes toward Wang Lin full of disbelief. "This is..." Tian Yunzi in gray gasped. Only the Void Master, lost in madness, was oblivious to everything. His physical body seemed real, but in reality, it was a manifestation of his primordial spirit in the first decay of heaven and man. His blood and internal organs were all products of his primordial spirit. The decaying of the body signified the destruction of his primordial spirit. Lost in his madness, he charged toward Wang Lin with the intent to devour him whole. But just as he closed in on Wang Lin within a few dozen feet, the Wang Lin he saw suddenly disappeared, leaving no trace. In its place, the entire world around him turned into the Black Night in an instant. Even the vast fire sea that had scattered after the sky collapsed vanished in that moment. It was as if Wang Lin was no longer in the land of demonic spirits, but in a boundless, independent space. Not only was the world black, but there were also sounds of crashing waves, a howl of the sea breeze, which made it impossible to deny the reality of this place. The Void Master roared in fury, his frustration mounting as he found no trace of Wang Lin. He went into a frenzy, continuously attacking the sea, raising waves of furious surges. The gray-robed Tianyunzi gazed ahead, an unfamiliar feeling of fear rising within him, a sensation he had not experienced in many years. It crept up unknowingly, uncontrollably, as though he vaguely sensed something, but the more he sensed, the more his mind was shaken, and his eyelids twitched uncontrollably. At that moment, a red glow suddenly appeared on the distant, undulating sea surface. The instant the red light appeared, Tianyunzi's eyes filled with a fear he had never known. He recognized it. It was the very force of the rules he had previously refused to believe. Without hesitation, Tianyunzi swiftly retreated, his scalp tingling. But no matter how fast he fled, he found himself still over the sea. In the distance, the red glow along the horizon grew increasingly intense, and before everyone's eyes, it was none other than a blazing red sun. The sun was blood red, and beneath it, the waves roared furiously. At that moment, almost everyone felt an illusion, as though their physical bodies had dissipated, turning into endless night sky. Even the frantic Void Master paused for a moment, stunned. He suddenly shuddered and awoke from his confusion. But immediately, his eyes widened in sheer terror. Initial rules. In the mid-stage of Glimpse of Nirvana, having understood the world's principles, he created the sea sun rising over the twilight. Now, Wang Lin's cultivation had far surpassed his previous self, reaching the peak of Glimpse of Nirvana, with pure Nirvana just a step away. With his current strength, casting the first divine technique he created in his life, one that could only be performed under the rare appearance of the initial rules, would be extraordinarily powerful. Even Wang Lin himself couldn't predict its full strength. However, at this moment, as the sound of crashing waves reached his ears, Tianyunzi felt an intense dryness in his throat. It wasn't just him. His two other Tianyunzi avatars felt the same, if not worse. That gut-wrenching feeling was uncontrollably escalating. The Void Master had fully awakened. He stared blankly at the red sun rising at the horizon, its light just beginning to show, but its immense glow was like countless swords, seemingly ready to tear apart the night sky. Within the black night, he seemed as though he too would be torn apart, his body and soul annihilated by the overwhelming light. This was the power of the Twilight Force, sea sun rising over the twilight. Time felt like eternity, yet like the blink of an eye, the red sun on the sea finally rose fully. At the moment the sun emerged, an unimaginable force surged forth, radiating from the 1,000-mile sunlight. This force tore apart all that stood in its way and instantly displayed the full power of the initial rules. The night sky was violently torn asunder, the power so immense it could reverse the heavens, shake the Tao, and collapse the night, turning it into shattered pieces, leaving only bright light in its wake. Within it lay Wang Lin's immense killing intent, the anger from his time being relentlessly pursued in the Immortal Emperor's cave, the anger from finally falling into Tianyunzi and the ancient demon Tajia's scheme, becoming their unwilling accomplice. This anger had been building in his heart, waiting to erupt. Moreover, due to Wang Lin's second Vermilion bird awakening, this world-shattering heat exploded with the rise of the sun, far surpassing the limits of Wang Lin's divine power. This was the combined force of the initial rules and his twilight divine ability, unleashed through the rising sun, amplified by the scorching heat embedded in the sun itself. As the red sun rose from the sea, it unleashed an unprecedented golden light and an unbelievable heat. This was no longer just about tearing apart the night. It was about obliterating everything. This night, this sky, this earth. It would burn all things to ash. The first person to face the fury of Wang Lin's sun and twilight divine ability was the Void Master, who stood closest to the sun. The 1,000-mile sunlight swept across the world, accompanied by an extreme temperature. The Void Master was already on the brink of death, marked by the first decay of heaven and man. Without the ancient demon Tajia's mark on his forehead, he would have already perished. Under the boundless sunlight, the night was ripped apart. The Void Master's face turned pale. His physical body, a manifestation of the first decay of heaven and man, began to crumble. The sound of his legs cracking rang out, and in an instant, his body shattered into a mist of primordial spirit. But as the mist appeared, it was instantly dissolved by the 1,000-mile sunlight, vanishing without a trace. At this moment, the Void Master felt no pain. The only thing his mind could grasp was the boundless terror and the disbelief that still lingered in his heart. As the legs dissipated, the ancient demon mark on Void Master's forehead also held back for only a few breaths before it exploded with a deafening roar. With the collapse of the mark, Void Master's agonized scream echoed through the air, his body rapidly fading, and he desperately tried to retreat. But in this vast world, under the power of Twilight Force, even the darkness had no place to retreat. How could Void Master escape? No matter how he tried to back away, he could not evade the looming death. As he retreated, the sunlight spread and swept through the universe. His screams echoed, but his body, under the boundless sunlight, was torn apart like a sieve, disappearing with a bitter smile and despair. A once mighty cultivator of the perfect shattered nirvana, with a high status in the Cultivation Alliance, and a disciple of Zhong Xuanzi, Void Master, who had once dominated the world and caused countless heroes to fall, ultimately could not escape the cycle of reincarnation, the first decay of heaven and man, nor the consequences of the evil he had personally sowed. Filled with infinite regret and a lingering attachment to life, Void Master vanished into thin air. All of this occurred in the blink of an eye. Almost as soon as the blazing sun rose, Void Master suddenly died. The sunlight, without any pause, raged outward, tearing apart the darkness and rushing towards gray-clad Tianyunzi and the other two avatars. In that instant, gray-clad Tianyunzi felt an excruciating pain, as if his body were being torn apart from every direction. Even his independent primordial spirit was engulfed in it. The pain was unlike anything he had ever felt in his life, as if his body were being shredded into pieces. A powerful life-and-death crisis surged in gray-clad Tian Yunzi's heart. He suppressed the panic in his mind and roared as his arms suddenly spread wide. Immediately, a surge of heaven and earth energy erupted from his body, transforming into countless killing auras that appeared in the world. These killing auras spread without limit, almost filling the entire sky. The sounds of their whistling echoed, attempting to drown out the waves of the sea, even trying to resist the twilight force that nearly shattered his soul. Not only him, but also his two avatars. At that moment, their faces turned pale, and without hesitation, they unleashed their divine powers. One of the avatars, wearing yellow robes, spun rapidly, and a storm appeared around his body, rising into the 9 heavens. In the sky, the winds and clouds changed color, and countless yellow ripples appeared in the black night. In the center of those ripples, Tian Yunzi's finger of heavenly fortune appeared with a thundering crash. This yellow-robed Tian Yunzi was the very practitioner of the finger of heavenly fortune technique, the core of his divine power. With his roar, the finger of heavenly fortune in the sky carried an aura so immense that any mortal who witnessed it would fall to their knees in worship. It shot straight toward the blazing sun rising from the sea, intending to destroy it. The other avatar, wearing purple robes, formed hand seals, and divine power spread out. Instantly, purple mist rose behind him, merging with the darkness of the night. Even this avatar, too, dissipated, merging into the blackness. In an instant, figures of ferocious beings emerged from the purple mist, their murderous intent overwhelming. They appeared as if they had been trapped in hell for countless years and were now released, howling to the heavens. These figures were the souls of the countless people devoured by the Tianyun sect over the millennia. However, as soon as the divine powers of the 3 avatars manifested, they were immediately pierced by the endless sunlight from the blazing sun, as if the night was being torn apart by the dawn. The sinister figures emerging from the black mist charged towards the sun, but were destroyed in an instant, as if they were moths flying into the flame. Some burned in the sunlight, disintegrating into pieces and scattering in all directions, leaving not a trace. The purple-robed Tian Yunzi, his figure twisting, forced his way out of the night, his face pale as he coughed up blood. His pupils contracted in horror. As for the finger of heavenly fortune, it charged toward the sun with an overwhelming force. Before it could even get close, the sunlight swept it away with a series of thunderous crashes. Flames spread across it, and in mere moments, it exploded like the night, collapsing in a fiery burst. Primordial law, the beginning of all rules of heaven and earth. The yellow-robed Tian Yunzi's face turned ashen, and intense pain coursed through his body, causing blood to pour from his 7 orifices. He spat out a mouthful of blood, his face contorted in a miserable smile. The countless strands of slaughter chi emanating from the gray-robed Tian Yunzi surged forward like azure dragons chasing the blazing sun, yet the radiant beams of sunlight swiftly dispersed this cold, murderous aura. Those that didn't vanish were torn apart upon approaching the fierce sunlight. The gray-robed Tian Yunzi's face was ashen, but his eyes gleamed with a frenzied ferocity. Now possessed of independent awareness, he realized that if he did not fight with all his might today, he would face complete annihilation in this divine art. With a fierce roar, he decided to risk it all. His hands formed seals that pressed firmly against the divine art, and a thunderous sound erupted from within him. His eyes turned a brilliant red, and a crimson glow surged from the crown of his head, giving rise to a blood-red sword. This sword symbolized the very essence of the slaughter chi he had cultivated throughout his life, and was the root of all killings. As the blood sword emerged, the world was soon enveloped in a boundless wave of violence. With a decisive motion of his hand, the sword shot forth like a thunderbolt. Similarly, the yellow-robed Tian Yunzi roared, his arms outstretched. In an instant, he transformed into a meteor streaking into the sky. Before long, his entire head shrank to the size of a thumb. His arms became the index and middle fingers, and his legs morphed into the ring and pinky fingers, his body transforming into a massive hand. This hand was much larger than the finger of heavenly fortune and contained all the power of the yellow-robed Tian Yunzi. The enormous hand hurtled toward the blazing sun, palm wide open, ready to strike with ferocious force. Meanwhile, the blue-robed Tian Yunzi wiped the blood from his lips, revealing a maniacal glint in his eyes as he charged forward. Strangely, trailing behind him were thousands of ethereal shadows, resembling afterimages caused by his incredible speed. Yet each afterimage was distinct. As the blue-robed figure drew closer to the blazing sun, those shadows rapidly fused into his body. With each fusion, his aura grew stronger, and as more shadows merged with him, his presence surged like a mighty tide. The three were fighting desperately, cornered like trapped beasts. If they could not break through this terror-inducing divine art, they would have no chance of survival.